Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Auto Central, South Africa's #1 motoring podcast. My name is George Mini, and as usual, joined by Wandile Sishi. How's it, Wandi?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's another week to talk about cars, so I'm super excited. And we have a special guest today, so, you know.
We do have a special guest indeed, but before we get to our special guest, what happened to your man?
It is double Dutch delight for Max Verstappen, who crosses the line to win the Dutch Grand Prix. Tiesto waves the flag. Turn up to the max. Listen to that roar.
Can we not this week? This week I'm a little bit heartbroken, you know. I'm trying to get into, you know, the week happy. But yeah, you know, you saw what happened. Max completely dominated the game, and I'm super proud of him. I think it was a fantastic performance. So
You mean the race?
It is what it is.
You mean the race? The game.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking forward to next year when Bottas leaves the team, and maybe Hamilton will have some competition in his own team with George Russell.
I hope so too. I think when Hamilton has a good racer next to him, he does better. So we'll see what happens. And I think Russell deserves a drive. Bottas was a fantastic teammate.
He was.
So yeah.
I think it's a little bit too supportive, but that be that as it may. But yeah, as you mentioned, we've got a special guest in virtual studio today, Kabelo Raboto. Did I say that right, Kabelo?
Yeah, that's great, George. No problem.
Welcome to the show. And Kabelo is a country director for Nissan South Africa, and is going to tell us a little bit about his own career and a little bit about Nissan South Africa, specifically maybe the new Navara, and some of the technology in those cars. But today we're going to be unpacking everything Nissan South Africa, and from its current state to upcoming projects to lockdown impact, and maybe some exclusive insights that Kabelo can give us. So welcome, Kabelo. I suppose kicking off the show, you know, we always, when we get new guests on the show, we have a couple of quick fire questions. Are you ready for it?
Let's go for it, George.
Let's go for it. All right. So I've got 5 quick fire questions for you. Answer as quick as you can. Chicken or beef?
Beef.
V8s or EVs?
EVs.
Beach or safari?
Safari.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Sunset or sunrise?
Sunrise.
Awesome stuff. I think Kabelo sits right in my camp, right, Wandi?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what you answered. So you best friends
exactly,
forever afterwards.
Exactly. Thanks for that, Kabelo. I hope that it wasn't too daunting for you. Nobody wins anything from those questions, but gives the audience a little bit of insight into what Kabelo likes. So, getting right into it, your career background, Kabelo. You know, how do you find yourself as country director at Nissan South Africa? What is your career background personally?
Okay, I joined Nissan in 2016, in December 2016, as the marketing director. And in December 2020, then I was appointed to the position of country director. That came about as Nissan restructured the regional structures and created an Africa business unit, which then is made up of both South Africa, Sub-Sahara, and Egypt as the markets. But if I go back, before joining Nissan, I was with BMW South Africa as general manager, responsible for Mini brand for both sales and marketing. And prior to that, I spent most of my time actually with Toyota, where my career actually started in product marketing and research, and eventually into sales. And at some point, had a stint as a dealer principal. Yeah, I've been a motor man most of my life.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you've been a motor man most of your career. Well done, Kabelo. I think that's a solid resume in our industry, particularly in South Africa. I wonder how many of the top level people have actually been DPs. I think DP is quite a tough job because you're on the ground having to deal with selling those cars to the customers. How did you find that stint?
It was quite an experience, I must say, because as I indicated, I started mostly at an OEM, and then you move to the dealership and you start realizing that things don't necessarily happen as we thought from a head office perspective. That's where rubber hits the road, and you actually have to make decisions and deal with customer issues live. It's not theoretical; it's very practical. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot about being operational, on the fly, managing a business holistically from sales to after sales. And at the same time, trying to go out there and find business, find customers, and keep them happy, and keep on delivering on the commitment that has been made by the brand, making sure that you stay focused and you have the right people to be able to deliver that experience.
Well, it sounds like it's definitely a success story because, from dealer principal to now country manager of Nissan South Africa. So tell us a little bit more about Nissan. Where did it all start for the brand? How did Nissan particularly end up in South Africa?
Nissan came to South Africa, I think, in around about 1960, if my memory serves me well. Like any other manufacturers, we established manufacturing facilities in South Africa, which allowed them then to capitalize on a market that was growing, but also as a gateway into Africa, even though at that time it didn't look like that. So then I think it was in 1964 where Nissan manufacturing actually was established. And over time, products were introduced and the plants that was growing and became a player into this industry, and have led in a number of areas, including, among other things, and you're asking your fire questions, EVs, because we're first to bring EVs into market.
That's very true.
Yeah, but that's what Nissan has been about.
I actually, back when I just started coming into the automotive industry, I actually worked on a Nissan project for a school assignment. And something that the brief were given by Nissan was to kind of encompass this idea of innovation that excites. And I think at the time EVs were just sort of coming into the sphere, and that's something that I understand that you guys are very passionate about and will be bringing forward. Is that still the case, or has anything changed?
No, electric vehicles are still quite core to our strategy and as a brand direction, purely because one of our philosophy is to contribute positively into zero emissions, and electric mobility allows that to happen. And while we still have ICE or internal combustion engines, the migration and the direction to move towards alternative or new energy vehicles is quite critical if we are to achieve zero emissions.
So how does that, George, how that impacts models such as like the GTR? Are we trying to electrify those sort of models as well? Is that like a secret that shall be announced in the future?
I think that the future plans of GTR will unfold in the coming years. But for now, still for the petrol head. I tried. Okay.
Well, I think anybody who's driven the GTR knows what kind of machine that is. So, Autotrader sees 10.9 million, or saw 10.9 million searches for Nissan on our platform between the period of January 2021 and August 2021. So, I'd like to kind of understand, Kabelo, how have the sales been? Because seeing 11 million searches for Nissans on our platform, has that translated into new car sales, or what is your recollection of the first, call it 3 quarters of this year in terms of sales?
If you look at sales, firstly, the market itself is showing a recovery out of the impact of it in 2020. And we are also seeing that happening with our products, with interest from customers. However, as you know, that we faced with semiconductor shortages in the industry, as well as supply chain related issues with regard to shipments and delays that are causing. We have, however, been faced with shortage of vehicles in market to be able to cater and take advantage of that recovery in the market. But last month, for example, in August, we had a very strong month. I think we actually ended up number 3 overall in terms of sales. So there is quite an interest, and we're seeing ourselves growing month on month, as long as we're able to then provide the stock to be able to do that.
So digging a little bit deeper, on Autotrader, in the same period, the top searches for Nissans were the Nissan NP200, the Nissan Navara, and the Nissan X-Trail. Do you see the same models in your sales numbers, or do you find that different models are selling best, the top three models?
The MP200 still remains our top-selling vehicle in South Africa. I think it has good heritage. It offers a unique proposition in the market, being the only half-ton pickup, and quite suitable for smaller businesses as well as a number of fleet owners. And Navara are also doing quite well. I suppose most of those searches are also related to the fact that we've just introduced the new Navara in the local market, and people looking for understanding, but also maybe for used cars because it has good resale values. And with the introduction of Nissan Magnite, we've now seen a shift. So X-Trail, yes, for a long time being our top third car, but the Nissan Magnite, which is a new edition, now within the top three as well. So that's quite an interest. But I suppose from a used car perspective, we'll see those coming later in the coming months or years as becoming probably most searched vehicles. But X-Trail still remains quite a strong brand.
I suppose what we could do after this, Wandi, is we could separate new car and used car searches, because I mean we've got new cars on the platform as well, and see whether the searches for new Nissans match the searches for used Nissans.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the dates, if you look about a year ago, at the same period, Jan to August, you can see that the searches for Nissan has almost doubled. So it kind of shows the prowess of the brand, and you know the MP200 continuously, and all the reports that we do come out with, stands out as one of the top vehicles. So yeah, I'm sure we'll see some, you know, the Magnites sort of come out in the new car sales and searches.
So coming out of lockdown, Kabelo, you know, and how has Nissan adapted? You know, are there learnings? What for you is the new normal? What have you changed in the business?
I think when we went into lockdown, we all thought it was going to be a temporary lockdown in itself, especially when last year in March. However, it sort of went on for quite a long time. But what it did for us allowed us an opportunity to relook how we do business, particularly if we look at the digital platforms that we use, allowing customers to shop at home, looking at ways to be able to go to customers instead of using the old traditional brick and mortar where customer has to walk into dealerships all the time, but taking our services to customers, introduced, among other things, Kaito, which is a bot that we have, because we saw customers were shopping at very strange hours of the morning or night, which when we are closed and sleeping, but people tend to be looking for cars at those. So we actually accelerated a lot of our digital initiatives with regard to ensuring shop at home, as I indicated. At the same time, we also looked at how we work as colleagues, with most people now working from home and coming into the office every alternate day. So the team dynamics also changed. But from a customer perspective, was to create an environment, whether you want to shop on a digital platform or you want to go and still kick the tires, you have an opportunity to do both. So it gives customers that flexibility.
Wow. Understood. I know something that you've spotlighted there is this idea that, you know, consumers are changing, and you've had to sort of adapt to that. So something that I want to kind of ask about, a very popular model was the Navara. We know that at some point it was discontinued, but what is a change that Nissan has sort of experienced that has made you guys decide to bring it back?
Navara has, or maybe let me go one step back. Pickups are part of Nissan's heritage. I think we have a history as Nissan brand globally that spans 85 years of pickup production and sales. So we've always had Navara as a pillar of our strategy going forward. Yes, we had Navara originally, which we introduced. Yeah. Then we had a gap in between. Then we introduced the previous Navara before we started local production. So the plan was always to produce Navara locally, and at that time to then look at replacing basically the hard body with Navara, so as we move with the changes with customer needs, as well as ensuring that we've got a plant that can be utilized for many more years to come.
does Navara still continue to be one of the best-selling brands under Nissan?
Yeah, it is. Both globally and locally. We launched, as you know, in June, and we've had good 2 months of sales since then. And we only launched with the double cab, and the single cab will start retailing from next month. So we'll have a full range. At the moment, the plant have been focusing on ramping up, both for South Africa and sub-Saharan markets with double cab, and then now we started ramping up with single cab. So by October, we will have a full range of Navara lineup.
I think with the whole advent of SUVs becoming more popular, though, we'll start seeing the Magnites becoming one of the top brands in Nissan, and I'm sure it will happen. But time will tell.
Time will definitely tell. Go on, Kabelo.
Yeah. What I wanted to add is that our strategy is actually built on 2 pillars. One, it's light commercial vehicles, which is pickups. And that's where the MP200 and Navara are quite critical in our stable products that we locally produce. But SUV crossovers are the second pillar. So our focus is around ensuring that we cater for those growing segments and not necessarily trying to be everything to everyone.
Just don't forget the GTR, please. I beg you.
You and the GTR. Wendy's a racing fanatic, which is absolutely awesome. And, he's a big Lewis Hamilton fan. Now, I mean, I suppose I'm not a big Lewis Hamilton fan because I'm a Ferrari fan. Whoever's in the Ferrari is my man. But, what happens if Hamilton goes down to a lower level team one day? I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to pull your hair out there. Eh? Are you Formula?
I think I'm always going to be a Hamilton fan, but we'll see.
Are you a Formula One fan, Kabelo?
Yes, I'm also a Hamilton fan. I don't know whether we're biased, but yeah.
I think there's more of the Hamilton fans out there than there are. Well, I don't know about Max nowadays. He seems to be drawing a crowd. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Formula One. You're here to talk about Nissan South Africa. And so, Kabelo, looking ahead, what are Nissan's plans in South Africa for the next 2 to 3 years?
Nissan introduced Nissan Next as our transformation strategy, which we launched last year in June. And in Nissan Next, we actually articulate our focus points, being one, we're going to rationalize, and which means we will drop some models. And one of those was the hardbody, Nissan hardbody, which has been tried and tested to pick up in this market, but we had to make space for Navara. On the other side, it's about focus. And on the focus side, we indicated at that point that we will launch 7 new models over the next 2 years. And one of those being the Navara. We now have the Magnite, and we now have a plan to then strengthen our SUV crossover lineup with cars like your Qashqai, which, as you might have seen in Europe, already introduced and will be hitting our shores in the beginning of next year. So, and then all the way to the Terra and many other cars after that.
Something that you didn't mention there is the Nissan Z. Is that part of the plan as well, or is that still future? I'm just trying to get these exclusives.
Look. Personally, I love the Z. It's a car that has contributed in defining what Nissan is as a brand. However, we do not have plans at this stage to bring the Z into the market, but we'll continue studying for opportunities. And at the right time, probably bring it. But for now, we just need to refocus the business and do what we actually committed to follow through on.
Well, talking about looking ahead, Nissan was the first introducer, for lack of a better word, of the electric vehicle Nissan Leaf, and it hit South African shores. So what are the EV plans for Nissan in the future in South Africa? And is there a reason we're not seeing the Leaf at the moment in South Africa?
Okay, let me start with the second part of your question. Yes, we introduced the Leaf, and the intention was to continue with the Leaf. However, I think the environment was not necessarily ready for that kind of vehicle at that stage. One, because of the need to also look at the duties that are applicable from an affordability perspective, infrastructure with regard to charging stations needs to also improve to take away range anxiety, which we know in many cases people don't buy electric vehicles because of concerns as to how far they can go. So we broke the first leaf. We wanted the market to develop and then reintroduce all our electric vehicle. We are looking at new energy vehicles, which is not only limited to full battery vehicle, but we're also looking at e-power technology, which we will start with that. And probably just a scoop, the first will be within next year.
Lovely stuff. I mean, it was a bold move, if I have to say so myself, and I think a forward-looking move for Nissan. A lot of people, criticize Nissan for the Leaf in South Africa, but I think those two things that you mentioned were real challenges, and are still some of the challenges today, and that is range anxiety and charging infrastructure. I mean, today we've got 300 plus charging stations in the country, but you brought the Leaf out here when there was pretty much no charging infrastructure. You had to charge the car at home. So that's a bold move, I think, and hats off to Nissan, because taking a bold move like that, I think almost the first mover sets the scene for the future. And even although the Leaf is not in South Africa anymore, doesn't mean that it gave people an experience. It gave people an experience. It didn't take anything away. So well done to Nissan. And I'm looking forward to full Nissan EVs coming back to the country. But I think what you're talking about is the hybrid technology. That it seems to be the middle ground in South Africa before we get to battery electric vehicles. A lot of OEMs are bringing hybrid vehicles to South Africa. Is that what you're referring to, or is it another kind of energy vehicle?
Well, e-power, I think the generic description would be hybrid. However, the difference with e-power technology versus normal hybrid is that your internal combustion engine never actually drives the vehicle. It's merely there to charge. Okay. So the car is all electric, but driven, but with a backup internal combustion engine to be able to charge the vehicle. So that's a technology that we'll bring first, but we will still also introduce full battery vehicles in the coming years. Okay.
All right. So basically, the car's engine is not powering the wheels; it's acting as a generator for the batteries, I assume, which then drives the motors, which drives the drivetrain, which is an interesting way to look at it. Because do those vehicles' engines operate all the time, or do they just charge the batteries and then switch off?
No, they come in only when required to be able to charge the battery. So I think the car is full electric in terms of what drives the motor, the vehicle.
Yes.
We've seen that formula work really well for some of the other OEMs, specifically in a country like South Africa. So I know it's something that in this climate would work well to get people just into the idea of thinking of EVs. So it's good. It's a good strategy.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with you, because education is quite important. We still need to get people to adjust from normal combustion engines and move into the next step. As George indicated, yes, we went all the way with electric vehicles, and that's still the direction that we're moving. But I believe that e-power technology is still probably a better way to drive the transition to eventually ending up at electric vehicles.
I don't want to take things to motorsport all the time, but just a question
with regards nonsense. This is a motorsport question, is it?
It most definitely is. We know that Formula E is coming to South Africa very soon. There's those talks about coming next year, those talks about coming this year. Is there any plans for Nissan South Africa to sort of be, or Nissan in general, to just be part of the Formula E calendar as a constructor?
Nissan is in Formula E.
Oh.
I thought you knew that.
Okay.
Because Hamilton's not driving.
Go back and,
it's just that maybe because Hamilton is not there, so he hasn't paid much attention to it.
Exactly. Is Nissan South Africa involved at all in terms of Formula E, or is it done at head office level?
Head office level.
It's currently handled from a global headquarters perspective. We're not involved. However, if it comes to South Africa, then at that point we will leverage that opportunity as Nissan South Africa.
Because I think there's talks to bring it to Cape Town next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to Maximilian Gunther. I see is Nissan's driver. I just looked that up. I didn't know that, Wandy. I just looked that up. Maximilian Gunther is the Nissan Formula E driver. I love Formula E. I mean, people say that you want to hear the sound of the engine, but I think Formula E is pretty exciting. I mean, what's your preference there, Kabelo? Is it Formula One with all the noise and razzmatazz, or is it Formula E?
I think what people don't realize is that electric vehicles are actually an exhilarating experience in terms of how quickly they accelerate and how, that speed you can actually get out of them. It's amazing. So the sound, it's great. However, I think the exhilaration comes not only from the sound, but from the actual feeling that G-force as you're driving. So I love EVs.
The G-force, as you put it, exactly. That G-force is something that you only know when you've experienced it. I'm pretty sure you've been inside the EVs to experience it there, Kabelo, but you only know that when you experience it. And a lot of petrol heads, in my mind, they criticize an EV, but they haven't really been in one. And until you're in one, it's a different story. And experience that absolute sheer acceleration, as you put it. So, ladies and gentlemen, that kind of concludes our show with the country director Kabelo Raboto and the iconic Nissan brand. I remember the days, Kabelo, when the Datsun Bucky was the talk of the town, and then did Nissan acquire Datsun? Datsun acquire Nissan? One of the two.
In actual fact, Nissan was born out of Datsun, but it's actually. That the brands have been interrelated over the years.
And then I remember there was a period where you were called Nissan Datsun.
Yes. In South Africa, we started as Datsun, but I think around the world, the two were always part of each other's DNA. We share the DNA, and
Who can forget the half-ton pickup Datsun? And my grandmother used to drive a Datsun 120Y. It was a baby blue Datsun 120Y. So I know about the Nissan brand, or the historical Datsun brand, and now we have the Nissan Navara, brand new Nissan Navara. Go and check it out on autotrader.co.za, as well as a couple of new models coming to the market, as Kabelo put it, towards the beginning of next year, and then. I'm looking forward to this, this e-technology that Kabelo talks about. I'm keen to drive one of those cars that Kabelo refers to as e-technology. So let us know when those hit the road, Kabelo, and we'll definitely have a look at it. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been epic, and we will catch you on the next one. Any final thoughts there, Wandy?
No, it's just thank you for joining us, Kabelo. I think lots of insight has come out, lots of exclusives. So I can't wait for everyone to see this, and hopefully we'll get you on the next show.
Good stuff.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Cheers, gentlemen.